Hi, Candice. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so blessed. So great today.
We are so grateful to have you here and look forward to chatting with you today on the Cycle podcast. But before we dive into endo and endo story, um, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Candice. I live in Ohio with my husband. We had two dogs for a long time, but they recently passed away. So we're empty nesters, as you might say. I work in procurement, which basically means I negotiate contracts for a living. I'm a self proclaimed foodie. I love cooking and I love food. And my husband and I were both Trekkies. We love sci-fi.
Fun. Okay. Is there like a favorite sci-fi movie you have or that you both love, or is it Star Trek, or is there
Well, Star. I
something?
mean, Star Trek is kind of our bond. Right now we're watching Picard, which comes out every Thursday on Paramount
Hmm.
Plus.
Hmm.
So I don't know about anyone else, but this season three is phenomenal. It's awesome if anyone's an Enterprise fan. So
Oh, so fun. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. I never got into it, but when one of the movies came out it might have been a couple years ago, and oh gosh, what's his name? He's in Dungeons and Dragons this weekend. I just love it. Oh, Chris Pine? Was Chris Pine in it? Someone
oh
was in it. I
yeah,
was
the
like,
Star
I need to
Trek
go see it.
movie. Yeah,
The
the
movie, yeah.
modern movie. Yeah, I always think of
The
the older
modern
ones
version.
from those who were on the TV show. So I'm a TV show fan. I'm a Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
He's my favorite captain from Next Generation. So this season three with Picard is just all the old people are coming back. And it's just great. Like Geordie LaForge was and his daughter, his real life daughter was actually on one of the last episodes. So it's awesome.
I
LeVar
love this.
Burton from Reading Rainbow. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I do remember as a kid, like we always watched Star Trek. Like it was, but I haven't in years watched it. So, wow. Okay. Well, that is fun. That's a fun tip. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
Cool.
well, let's chat a little bit about, endo story. Was there a time that you experienced symptoms at a younger age, and what were they, and when do you remember that happening? Or, some people don't have symptoms at all, but how did you kind of start out on this path?
Well, I think, this probably makes me a little different than many who have an endo story. I was a bit of a late bloomer. So I didn't have my first cycle until I was 15. And I remember I was 15 because my mom was really kind of worried about it. Like, when are you going to start? And I remember not being very happy about the whole thing. Um, but I always had pretty very regular cycles every 28, 30 days. But they were long, which I didn't really understand until later when I was almost 19, 18, 19, because I had other friends who would have, 3 or 4 day cycles. Mine were always 6 or 7 days. And I viewed it as I was healthy, right? Like my mom, we were all like clockwork. My mom and my sister, we end up all on the cycle at the same time. And we were pretty much the same. So I just assumed it was normal. I mean, yes, I had cramps, fatigue, sometimes headaches, but I really never missed school or anything. And then I had a pediatrician who kind of told me, hey, if you're in pain, take medication. So probably by the time I was 16 or so, that first day or second day when it's the worst, I take some ibuprofen. I pretty much assumed I was normal. And I would probably say my cycles probably were normal. I mean, they were not what I associate with endo now. So let's say fast forward through college. At 19, I started birth control, and I first attempted to take Orville Novum. And I tried it twice. And within 24 hours of taking that medication twice, I it was like I had food poisoning. Like I would upheaval everything in the middle of the night. And so my doctor kind of said, hey, it sounds like you really can't tolerate a high estrogen medication. So we'll switch you to a low estrogen. So that's kind of what I took all through college. When I was with my boyfriend, now my husband, Isaac. And then we got married, and probably within 2 years after getting married. So let's say I'm like 26 or 7. I started to have random abdominal pains, almost like out of the blue, someone came up and like poked me with a toothpick or a knife and I'd just be standing in the kitchen cooking and I just have to brace myself for a few seconds and then it would stop and I'd look around, make sure no one saw me or my husband didn't see me, and then I'd go back to whatever I was doing. And then I started to have also pain or similar type cramps in my anus, random. And I just assumed, I don't know, when, it must be a sign my cycle's going to come. I
Right.
just must be normal. I mean, I really didn't think a lot into it. And then probably like a year after we got married, I got an IUD, the Marina IUD. And I think this may have hidden some things because in that first year, it was difficult. Um, I felt like my body was trying to expel this IUD. I would have like cramping every day, and it was all the time. Um, and it was just strange. And then one day, this is probably, I wouldn't have remembered this until like now after my endo journey. But I remember one day, middle of the night, trying to use the bathroom, and I felt these really sharp pains in my abdomen. And I really thought, like, I don't know, do I have kidney cancer? Like, something is horrible going on. And I yelled to my husband and I said, something's wrong. I think I'm dying. And he took me to the ER, and they basically were like, we have no idea what's wrong with you. We don't know what's causing your pain. Follow up with your primary care physician. And it was like a complete waste of
And
time in the middle of the night.
of course. And when you were having like those, like I call those like lightning episodes, like you were saying, when you're standing at the kitchen and you almost like get knocked over, or when you were getting them, like you said, in your anus, like were those come and go and you were just kind of like, okay, that was weird, but pressed on, and then you had this incident. Did you
Mm-hmm.
have any other, like, looking back now, like reflecting, were there any other things now when you can start to put it together symptom wise that may have stand out now that you have endo?
Yeah.
Like for me, I used to have migraines all the time, but I didn't associate it at all. I just thought, oh, I need glasses, or I just always had this something in
Mm-hmm.
my head that I needed glasses or whatever. I didn't understand that it was related.
Um, so I think the other probably biggest symptom I had at that time, which is really a telltale sign, and I probably just should have been talking more about it, but I had pain and bleeding either during or after sex. Most of the time after. It will be
Mm-hmm.
like that feeling like you're about to start your period. It's that first day. It's when your cramps are the most intense, and it'd be pretty soon after, within minutes after. And then I would start to spot, or I'd have like almost like a full on cycle. Um, and I just thought, oh, maybe this is the week before my period. And I don't know, we started something early. I started a little early. And I thought there was just more irregularity because also with the IUD, they kind of say you can spot, it can take some time for your body to get used to it. And so I really just was thinking this is the IUD. And I also started having it was kind of weird because with the IUD, your cycles get lighter, and they eventually did. But I also would have, like I told you, I always had like clockwork periods. But during this
Yeah.
time, I would sometimes I don't like start my period completely unexpected, and it would be very heavy. Like I have bled through my clothes. I have to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, I need to go home, or I
Yeah.
need to change. This is like an emergency, and I never was like that. really
Right.
was not irregular. And so at this point, I'm thinking all of these are just weird things about the IUD. I mean, I even called the
Hmm.
nurse. They're like, "Oh, it can take 6 months to a year for your body to get used to the IUD. Give it time, be patient." So that's kind of what I thought. And then over time with my IUD, my cycles got shorter and lighter until they eventually stopped. Probably took about 3 years for them to stop. And so obviously the bleeding symptom that I had went away. So from my
Right.
perspective, things were getting better. Now, the other probably symptom I had that it wasn't really, I wasn't sure what it was from, but during those times, I call them my faux period. So once my period kind of stopped, and even before it stopped, during that week, I would still have, cramping. My breast would swell. I still have all the PMS, all the things that come with a cycle except the bleeding. And so I would have pain with bowel movements, with going to the bathroom, often at night or after I've
Hmm.
eaten. And I mean, like, I'm like razor blades, like horrible abdominal pain. Like, I have to brace, I need to Lamaze breathe through it. And I'm like, this
Yeah.
isn't normal. And I remember talking to my primary care physician about it, and she was like, "Why don't you try a stool softener?" Now I'm gonna tell you, now that I've had the journey that I've had, and I've talked with so many friends, it almost angers me, makes me want to scream. How many times I've heard someone have horrible female issues, whether it's fibroids, adenomyosis, or endometriosis, and at some point a doctor told them, "Why don't you try a stool softener?" And I don't know how to
So
help a
frustrating.
doctor understand the difference between this pain and constipation. I'm not constipated. Like, that's not what is happening here.
Like I'm literally about to
um,
pass out from this pain because it hurts so bad. I don't think the stool softener is the solution.
Yes, yes, it was just bizarre. And so, I had my IUD. You usually switch out every 5 years. So I think toward the end of this IUD cycle, I was questioning, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to get another IUD? I'm having these pains, and by that point, I started to think, hey, this might be associated with that faux period because it was cyclical, right? Like, I could tell I had this pain sometimes, but not all the time. And so I did, when I was going to my OB talking about what to do for my new IUD insertion, um, I kind of mentioned some of these things. And I feel like that may have been when I was first, like, the concept of endometriosis, the word was introduced to me. I remember going on like endometriosis.org and searching, um, and really kind of finding, okay, your Mirena IUD is a form of treatment. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm being treated. And really, she just kind of said, you could have this. There's no way to know without surgery. Um, you know, but we could, try something different or not. And I said, okay, well, I'll get another IUD. So then I had my, you have to get pre-certified and you have your IUD insertion. And that second insertion was very difficult. I mean, getting an IUD inserted is no fun, period. I would tell anyone, get some pain medication, definitely take some ibuprofen before. But the nurse practitioner at that time, when I had that appointment, she said, "You have a small uterus." She was saying, "I'm really having a hard time getting it fully inserted. You have a small uterus." And at that time, that was the first time I ever heard, you may not be able to carry a child full term. And I mean, it wasn't a big deal. My husband and I hadn't planned to have children. But it was like, okay, someone's telling me something is different about me. Um, and then I'm thinking, okay, now all this cramping and pain, it seemed like it came back with a vengeance. Once it was like it was almost like I was getting reused to the IUD all over again when I had just had one. And so I'm calling back, like, is this normal? Should your body have to still get used to a Marina after your second insertion? Because I'm driving home from work at like 5 o'clock, long commute from downtown. And there would be times I'm just cramping so bad, I have to pull off the road. I have to stop at a gas station, take a
Oh my God.
breather, and it was almost every day. It was like
Yeah.
all the time. It would be like as soon as you sit down and can catch a breath from your workday and you can like check in with your body, you feel it. You're like, what is going on? And they're telling me the same thing. Yes, that can be normal. Your body has to get used to it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I probably dealt with that. I mean, I never really felt great. Um, and I kind of dealt with those symptoms, and like the cyclical like pain that it was more than cramps, right? It felt like barbed wire in your abdomen, and it was cyclical. I called it my faux period, and I take some ibuprofen
Yeah.
and try to just keep it moving. So fast forward till I'm about 30. So probably I think I had that second IUD in maybe 3 years or so. I'm just at a point like maybe it feels like my body, this is a foreign object. Maybe I just need to get this thing out of here. I don't know. Like maybe this isn't the right thing for
Your
me.
intuition. Yeah, I feel like your intuition kicked in and was like, there's just something off with
Yeah,
this.
like I'm
And
not
it
sure.
sounds
Or
like you
maybe
were
the
not feeling
insertion.
good.
Yeah, it was just
Sure, sure.
regular. And I also thought, well, maybe something went wrong with that insertion. Like maybe that doctor, that nurse practitioner, she wasn't as experienced. I don't know. But that insertion was very difficult. She told me things no one has ever said to me about the size of my uterus. So maybe she just had a hard time and something happened and I should just get this thing out. So I have an appointment with my OB at that time, and that's when I think I had more of a discussion around endo at 30. Because they were basically like, well, the marina is a hormone, it can help. But my doctor kind of asked me, well, you're getting older, and having a child can help if that's what this is, right? There's no way to diagnose it unless you have surgery. And he kind of described it at that time as like a blank check surgery. He basically said we can't see it, don't know what it is until we get in, and then even if we do, most women need to have surgery again every 3 to 5 years. So your prognosis isn't good. This is a progressive thing. And he basically said, well, we could put you on a pill and it will, and this is the words he used, dry up the endo if you have endo. So he was like, we can take the IUD out, put you on a stronger birth control pill, and see how that goes in managing your symptoms. We're going to trick your body into thinking it's pregnant since you don't want to have children. And so not knowing any different,
Of
at the time.
course.
And I will also admit, it's probably one of my biggest truths. Like at this time, I am in avoidance mode, right? I'm kind of like, I don't want this to be a bother on my husband. I want to move forward. I, don't want to have a surgery that won't be effective. I don't want to take that risk. And I'm scared, you know. Um, I really have to be honest about that. I want to personally take some accountability that I was hiding. I was afraid. I just wanted to do what was easy, and it seemed like that's what my doctors wanted me to do. And so I switched to a higher hormone pill called Amethia. I was probably on Amethia for maybe a couple years, like maybe 2 years. And it was where you take it every 3 months. You have a cycle every 3 months. And that's what appealed to me. It was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can take this continuously for 3 months and I only have to deal with these pains once every 3 months. I can work my schedule around that. I can deal with that, kind of a thing. So I got on Amethia and I did feel better. I think it was just staying on the hormone continuously. And I still, every 3 months, when I was took the placebo pills, I'd have my faux period. I wouldn't have a cycle. I'd have a faux period. Sometimes I have spotting. They were shorter. And I'd have the pain, and I just, I just assume that's, it's me being a woman and what my cycle is like. And I kind of dealt with it. And then over time, I kind of felt like I don't like taking the hormone. I had really bad night sweats. I think it did make me sometimes moody. Um, I started to gain more weight, but I'm over 30 now. And so I really thought about getting off of it. And somewhere around this time, because I think this was about 2013, I also had a colonoscopy. So the doctor also said, well, let's see whether you have, because some of the symptoms I was having because of the pain with my bowel movements, one of my biggest symptoms, he thought, well, maybe you have endometriosis that has invaded your bowel and it's inside your colon. So let's let's do a colonoscopy and see if it has gone that far. Had a colonoscopy, and this was kind of like his, I'm gonna call it, non-invasive way to potentially rule out endometriosis. So I had a colonoscopy and came out clean. No endo, no nothing. I don't even think I had a polyp. So it was kind of like, okay.
Candice, I just want to, yeah, I want to hop in really
Mm-hmm.
quick because I'm sure we're going to get into this in your story, but for people who are listening, a lot of those things that the doctor said are actually just their old endo myths that are just not accurate, right? Like he told you
Yeah.
to have a baby, like that is not, there's no way to dry up endometriosis with hormones. I mean, there's
I
just
know.
some people do feel better on birth control. It's just, yeah, it's crazy that you were told that in the 20th 21st century. I mean, it's crazy that you were told
I
that.
know. I
And
know.
how he how he told you they were going to have to have all these multiple surgeries. Of course you were scared. I mean, I want to talk about that avoidance too, like of you just took in all of this information where someone told you you might have to do all of these things. I also was guilty of avoidance. I still probably am a little bit today, but that is heavy information coming at you as someone is like in your healthy young 30s to be told, well, you might have to have a surgery every couple of years and it's going to come back. I mean, it's just, I would have avoided
Yeah.
it too, right? And then having the
Yeah. I
colonoscopy,
mean,
which I think, like, it's a good suggestion, I think, but I also think a lot of times, and I'm not a medical professional, a lot of people I talk to on the show, their endo never showed up on a colonoscopy, right? Because it was on the
exactly.
outside and hadn't infiltrated the bowel.
Exactly. It's a very low percentage that are ever identified through a colonoscopy. And I actually learned that this past year going to a gastroenterologist who did a colonoscopy before my surgery. And I can't remember the percentage, but he was saying like 4%, like very low percentage of endo cases found
Yeah.
that way. So,
Well, and
I mean,
that's
at that
super
point though,
helpful
I'm just,
information. Yeah,
yeah, that to not assume that just because you have a clean colonoscopy, you don't have endo. Like that's just not
exactly.
true.
Exactly. Right.
To not
Right.
think that, because it's probably a low chance that it has invaded to the point that it's inside your bowel and it can be seen. Because anything outside of that or in the muscular tissue of your colon, they're not going to see that from a colonoscopy.
Mm-mm.
So, but I think in my head, again, with the avoidance, it was like, okay, well, it hasn't gotten that bad. So maybe I don't really need surgery. I'm tired of this amethia. I'll get another IUD. It was easier. I don't have to remember to take it every day. Um,
Yeah.
I'll get another IUD. So I got, so that was now technically my third IUD, getting that one inserted. But I think this insertion, I think this OB, I love Jody. She was nicer. She really listened. And she said, let's do it. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, we'll take it out. So I had the IUD, and sure enough, it was okay for a few months, and sure enough, the pains came back with the fidgets. Um, and I kind of just was like, I mean, I don't know, this is my life. I don't really know what else to do. Um, and I felt like it was manageable at that time. So then I think let's fast forward a while. Let's really fast forward 5 years. We're in COVID. Obviously, it's a stressful time, but my job, thank goodness, I was working from home. And that, you know, was a, I know COVID was horrible for so many people. It was horrible for me. But at the same time, I always try to look for silver lining and the blessings. And as my symptoms got worse, which I think was because of all the anxiety during the time, I was really thankful to be able to work from home. Because by this point, my pain was so bad in the mornings. Because, let's say you take ibuprofen or something before you go to bed, it gets you through
Mm.
half the night. But by the time you wake up, you are
Yeah.
in the peak of your pain. And at this point, I'm in so much pain during these cycles, my full period, that I can barely sit up. I'm rolling out of the bed and I'm thinking to myself, okay, how many steps is it to get down the 2 flights of stairs, to get in the kitchen? You've got to get a loaf of, a slice of bread, got to get something in your
Yeah.
stomach. You can't take ibuprofen on an empty stomach, Candice. But you have to get up now because it's going to take 45 minutes for that pain medication to kick in, and you need to do it in enough time to get dressed and be ready for work. And so that's kind of what was happening right before COVID. I was getting late to work. I had a very nice boss, but it was getting a little like unpredictable. Um, and then as COVID
At
came,
that
it just
point,
continued and was worse.
when Candace, when that was
Mm-hmm.
happening, were you like, this is endo? Or at that point, were you still just like, didn't really know if this was endo? Were you just like, this is my life? I'm not feeling well. What were you thinking? Because I
Yeah.
lived a very similar experience where I literally just lived on taking the ibuprofen to get through the day. Exactly the same, like
Mm-hmm.
just eat this piece of toast so you can get more pain medication in. So were you
Exactly.
like, I think this is endo, or did you know at
Um,
that point?
I mean, I think by that point, because at that point, I'm in my late 30s, um, and I'm in my mind, I think I have endo, but I don't know 100%. And I also don't know if the IUD is part of the problem. Like I still have this
Right.
after all these years. I still like part of me maybe wants it to be the IUD because that's fixable. Take it out, it'll be fine, right? But it's like we
Yeah.
did that before and it
Yeah.
didn't really work. So like a part of me knew I have this thing, I have endo, but let me keep trying to manage it. The primary treatment is
Yeah.
hormones. I've been on hormones all this time since I was 19. Um, you know, let me keep trying to work through it. But I can tell you by the time we were well into COVID 2020, I was in a very regular anxiety about what am I going to do when this keeps getting worse, because I it's getting worse. Um, because it's that pain. And I mean, at this point, I'm also starting to have digestive issues where I called it, my husband and I, we use the term the purge. So I have my full period, and sometime during that week, I have the purge. And I don't know if it would be what I ate, if I, during that time, if I had red meat or if I went to happy hour and had one cocktail, but I would throw up all night long and I would be nauseous for probably almost about 24 hours. And and it would be
Yeah.
at a point where that's when it started to get uncontrollable, because when you can't hold anything down, you can't take pain medication. So I can't manage my pain. And so it was
Right.
just, I have to not work, right? Like I'm missing time because
Yeah.
I just can't function. I can't eat.
Yeah.
Um, so it was just getting harder to eat. Um, And so in 2022, we're coming out of COVID. I was so blessed. Just as my job was going back into the office, a colleague suggested to me, hey, you might be really great for this job at this other company. And I applied random, and it was a full-time remote position. And that was really, frankly, the one and primary reason why I pursued this job was I could work remote. I could stay remote. Not because I loved this working environment, but it was necessary. I was like,
Right.
we're going back into the office, and I don't like everyone's gonna know by now. I can't get to work before like 9 o'clock on a
Yeah.
regular basis every month. There's gonna be
And
this
you might
time
be
where I'm
laying on the
struggling.
floor at work. I mean,
Right.
I'm
Or
sure.
I'm
I mean, there were
throwing
times
up
I
or
laid on the
something.
floor. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
something is happening. And I forgot to mention because during over these years, I would have these episodes of throwing up. I mean, I have no idea why. It would be like every couple of months. We could be driving in the car, and my husband needs to pull over. I need to throw up. I remember one of his family members passed away, and we were in Virginia. And on the way there, I had to tell my brother-in-law, pull over. I have to throw up. And I mean, when I'm saying I throw up, it wasn't the hey, you throw up and it feels better and you're back to normal. It was shaking, trembling, like food poisoning. I'm sweating. I feel feverish. My heart rate is going through the roof. And even though I throw up, I still feel nauseous. I still feel sick, and it is not going away. It's
Yeah.
these kind of episodes, and they were happening kind of
Yes.
more frequently. And I will tell you, I did not connect that with my endo. I just
Yeah.
I would think I ate something or I got motion sick. I had no clue that that was really probably related to my endo until the cycle of the purge started to happen, like 2021, 2022, where it was every time I had the faux period, I generally have the purge, where it was like a
Yeah.
terrible episode of food poisoning. Um, And
Yeah.
so I got this job. I'm working remote now. Things are better, but I'm like, I need to really figure out what's going on with me. I need to know unequivocally because I can't live like this anymore. Um,
Yeah.
like someone's gonna figure
Yeah.
out what's going on. So probably let me see in June, so June of 2022, I had a kind of bad episode. And that's what really kind of prompted me. I was due for my OB appointment anyway, but in early June, I went on a work conference. It was probably the first time since COVID I had went somewhere in person for my job, meeting my boss for the first time. So my husband decides to travel with me. So we fly down to Atlanta, and the conference probably started Monday. So Wednesday night, I went out with some girlfriends who were at the conference. We all kind of met up, supplier diversity professionals. We had dinner, and we talked after dinner. And so, sometimes my symptoms will come after eating, but we were in such a deep discussion. I mean, it was like an hour after we ate, and we were still at the restaurant talking. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh no, it's happening. I have to get out of here ASAP. Um, and I don't know, Melissa, are you still there? Okay, you froze for a moment. And so I said, let me go to the bathroom. And I went to the bathroom and I stood in the stall and I was like, I'm about to spew vomit like I don't even, this is bad. I shouldn't even be in this public restroom. I need to get back to the hotel. And, I'm feeling the cramping pain. I'm feeling nauseous, sweating, my heart rate's up. And so I tell the girls, I'm going to head back. I'm not feeling well. And they're like, oh, do you want to come? No, no, don't come with me. And I thought about calling an Uber. I mean, like I'm having like a emergency. I thought about calling an Uber, and I was like, that might take too long. So I said, is there a way for me to run back? So I'm like, I can take the skywalk. So I run back through like the hotels and their skywalk, literally running. I'm jogging, running through these hotels, trying to get back to my room.
Oh my
And within
gosh.
seconds of getting back to the room, I tell my husband, I'm sick, something's wrong. And I immediately, I'm vomiting. And I threw up all night long. I mean, I literally did not sleep all night. It was every 10 or I try to lay down. I immediately feel dizzy and nauseous and have to get back up and throw up again. I mean, I'm just dry heaving. I don't have anything left. Everything has been purged from my body. And, I'm supposed to meet my boss and my coworker at 7 a.m. to get on the bus to head back to the next day of the conference Friday morning. And so I'm like, I can't eat anything. I'm just going to throw it back up. I mean, even water, anything. It's just not staying
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Because my husband will say, well, you got to have water. You're going to get dehydrated. Well, I would throw it right back up. So we had a kind bar, put a kind bar in my pocket, and I texted my boss. I said, I'm going to be late. I'm not feeling well, but I'll be there as soon as I can. You guys go ahead and get on the bus. So I said, I'm going to try to be there by 8 a.m. And this is that thing where you're trying to drag yourself together. You're weak, you're dehydrated, you haven't ate, you're in pain, but you can't take any pain medication. And I'm kind of forcing myself to clean myself up, get dressed, and get on this bus and meet them, because now, that's the way it would kind of work. It would almost need to work through itself all night long. And then I would kind of feel up, just not like mildly nauseous, but not enough to throw up, as long as I didn't ingest anything. It was sort of like I needed everything to be out of
Yeah.
my body for it to calm down. So at this point, I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I got 45 minutes. Let's get dressed, get on the bus. I get over to the conference center at 8:30. But of course, I'm starting to have a headache because I haven't ate, dehydrated. I'm trying to just get through until lunch or whatever. And it's so funny because I look back at the pictures, I'm smiling, trying to take pictures. I'm at this conference, and it actually happened to be my first year anniversary at the company. And so I'm taking these pictures for LinkedIn, and I took pictures in the morning. And then I look at pictures of what I looked like toward the end of the day after this. And it was like, this is what I looked like yesterday. And I look like a hot mess. You can tell I'm going through something, like I don't know how to explain it, but
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah.
look good. And my boss was like, hey, if
You
you want
were
to go back to the room, we're really kind of done for the day. It's the last day of the conference. And so he said I could go back early, and everyone started to kind of wrap up around 3 o'clock. So I went back to the hotel room, and I pretty much laid down. My husband and I, we checked out because I have family in Atlanta. So we decided to check out the hotel, then go to our new hotel. And I pretty much laid in the bed that whole night so that I would be kind of better together for the next day to hang out with family. Um, and that's kind of like, it's just an
I
example of
mean,
what
thank
it was
goodness
very
you weren't
often like.
alone.
Exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
I
I
mean, one
just
of my big things
I,
is having an advocate, having a support system. I mean, I cannot seriously, I haven't even gotten into my surgery and what happened with that, but I cannot express how thankful, how blessed I am to have my husband, how supportive he's been. I mean, he is the guy who's pulling my hair back while I'm throwing up, and trying to help me get water. And I mean, he's used to it. It's the routine. Um, so
yeah.
that was like, okay, so that June, I was like, okay, this is happening every month. Like, this is crazy. And it's ruining my trips. Like, I don't know how many trips we've been on where I have gotten sick and had to throw up. So I'm just like, okay, I got to do something about this. And so I go to my OB appointment, I think probably that following week. And I kind of tell her what's going on and all these digestive things. And she's kind of saying, you need to go see a gastroenterologist. That doesn't sound like that has anything to do with endo. Um, you know, but she's also kind of saying, hey, well, if you want to get the IUD out, we can do that today. She's like, you can keep it in for another year. They're more approved now to have them in for 6 years. But she was like, if you think the IUD is the problem, we can take it out today. And we sat there and talked about like what kinds of hormones she might try. And so she prescribed me a different birth control pill. And so right there in that moment, she took out my IUD, prescribed a new birth control, and it was a monthly birth control pill. But she said, this is, low estrogen, et cetera, et cetera. And she also told me something in this appointment that I didn't know from my pelvic exam, that I have a tipped or retroverted uterus. And no one had told me that before. So, and she said it's possible that I could have adhesions from endo that have actually moved it. She was like, that can be common, especially if you do have adhesions on your bowel, it will pull it kind of back out of place. So it's not that she's not listening, but at the same time, she's like, all these digestive system symptoms are not typical with endo. You need to see a gastroenterologist, and we'll take out your IUD. We'll try this birth control pill. So I take that pill for a month. Come mid-July, I have my placebo week. And I will be honest, this was my personal experiment. I was like, let me see what my body is really doing without any of the hormone, without the IUD. Let me see what's really going on and see, is it the IUD? Like, am I better? Oh my God. July of 2022. This was my come to Jesus moment with myself. I'm trying to like get through this, tell you about it without crying, because I'm gonna try my best. This, even after my
Well,
surgery, my
this is an
infection.
open space. Yeah.
Oh my God, this was the worst pain. There's only one other pain I'll tell you about later that was worse than this, but probably I started to have, I stopped taking the pill like I'm supposed to, take the placebo pills. Probably by day 2 or 3, I am in excruciating pain. I mean, round the clock, nonstop, like someone is churning barbed wire. Every time I have a bowel movement, it's like pooping razor blades. It's horrible. And it's just and that's kind of the way my faux cycle would be. It's kind of like a parabola, like it starts and it gets to a peak and it's horrible, horrible, horrible. And then it comes down. And so it was getting worse every day. It was like, I thought it couldn't get worse. And I remember this Thursday morning, I had taken ibuprofen at night. I woke up without any pain medication, and I'm out. Like, 'cause at this point, I'm taking like 3 ibuprofen. I'm taking 3 and 4 at a time to try to manage my pain. And I ran out. I had no more. And I remember telling my husband, hey, honey, I'm weak. I'm in pain. I know you have to work, but can you go to Walgreens and get me some more ibuprofen? I'm all out and I can't function without it. So he leaves, and then I say, okay, Candice, you got to get up because you got to go. All you have to do is go up 1 flight of stairs to your office and sign in for work. You just got to shower because, I've been sweating and pain. I'm like, you just got to shower, get dressed, get upstairs. So I get in the bathroom. And I'm at this point, I can't stand up straight. Right. And this is, I know people talk about endo belly, right? So I have been having endo belly for months. And at this time, I have endo belly. Like, you can visibly see, I look like I'm pregnant. My belly is distended and swollen. And I'm bent over, hunched over, trying to baby step my way into the shower. And I'm dizzy because I've been throwing up all night long the night before. And I can't. And that morning, my husband tried to make me drink water. I threw it back up and I couldn't take any medication. So I'm like, okay, just turn on the water. I turn on the water. I'm bracing myself in the shower because I started to feel so dizzy. I felt like I was about to faint. So I brace myself on the walls of the shower and I'm like, I can't stand up anymore. So I start to slide myself down the shower, slowly holding the walls, and I'm on my elbows and my knees. And I am in so much pain. My whole body. I am in so much pain. I am on my hands and knees with the water coming down on me, and I'm praying to God. I'm saying, please, Jehovah, take this pain away from me or take me. Please make it stop or take me now because I can't take it anymore. I was in so much pain. I prayed for death. Like, I could not move. I was paralyzed in pain. Um,
Gosh.
I could barely even move my head. So I'm at the bottom of the shower and I'm stuck. Like, I'm like, I can't move. My husband comes home from Walgreens and he has the ibuprofen. He gets this. Uh oh, I don't know.